This is Sunday night. Hello, I'm Melissa Doyle. They were a successful middle-class couple. Bob Chappell was a respected medical scientist. His partner Sue Neill-Fraser ran a horse riding school. But when Bob mysteriously disappeared off their yacht, Sue was charged and eventually found guilty of his murder. It was a highly controversial court case. There was no body, no weapon and no witnesses to the crime. Yet this quietly spoken grandmother was sentenced to 23 years in prison. Tonight, Matt Doran's special investigation reveals stunning new evidence that may set her free.
Australia Day 2009. The safe anchorage of Sandy Bay in Hobart. Working below deck on his yacht is Bob Chappell. These are the final minutes of his life. Most likely, his body was dumped into the cold, dark waters of the Derwent River. On circumstantial evidence alone, Bob's long-term partner, Sue Neill-Fraser, was jailed for murder. But that's not where this story ends.
I would characterise it as one of the most serious miscarriages of justice that I've encountered in Australia, and certainly ranks with Lindy Chamberlain as one of the most serious failures of our legal system in recent years.
I don't want this to happen to anyone else. We've just got to make sure we fight this so that other people don't go through it.
What's so extraordinary about this case is that Sue Neill-Fraser was sentenced to 23 years in prison, despite the fact that no body was ever found, no weapon ever discovered, and there were no witnesses. Even now, after 8 years in her cell, Sue Neill-Fraser insists she is innocent. Tonight, we can reveal explosive new evidence that may change everything.
The mysterious visitors to Bob's yacht. DNA puts another woman on board.
Someone else, other than Mum, was out at our boat sometime that evening.
Then there's a brand new witness.
It is starting to unravel now. I think the girl on the boat holds the key to this.
And from behind bars, recordings of Sue herself.
I've waited so long to have the truth come out. It's got to come out.
Susan Neill-Fraser is a really unusual murder suspect. She's a woman who, at the time of her arrest, was in her mid-50s. She had no record of violence. She had no criminal record whatsoever. She lived in a wealthy part of Hobart. She was well educated. She just didn't seem the type of person who was likely to commit a murder at all, let alone one that was as supposedly as vicious and as calculating as this one.
I've never doubted her innocence, but I've certainly tried very hard to see it from other people's perspective. And I have asked Mum, if you've committed this crime, just let us, tell me, I'll always love you. And, she's always, given me the same response, Sarah, I'm innocent, I didn't do it.
Broom, broom, here comes Mummy.
Sarah Bowles is Sue's younger daughter and has 2 kids of her own. She's a qualified nurse, but since her mother was arrested for the murder of Bob Chappell, Sarah has also taken on the role of detective.
There's no doubt in my mind that Mum is innocent. She did not commit this crime.
If we're to believe what you say is true, your mum has spent 8 years in prison for something she didn't do.
Absolutely.
That for any daughter, it's hard to manufacture a worse scenario than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I guess coupled with that is the loss of Bob as well. He was basically a father figure to me for my whole life. And it's for his memory as well.
When Sue Neill-Fraser met Bob Chappell, She was running a horse riding school. She was divorced with 2 young daughters, Sarah and Emma. He was the chief radiation physicist at the Royal Hobart Hospital, also divorced with 3 children of his own.
Mum and Bob's relationship was very, very strong. I mean, I think there was a extremely strong friendship that underlaid everything else. It was almost a meeting of the minds. They both loved bushwalking and the outdoors, and so we grew up very much, doing those kinds of things.
They also shared a love of sailing, and in October 2008 they went halves in a 17-metre yacht called the Four Winds. They picked the yacht up near Brisbane, hired a local crew and set sail for Tasmania. A few days into the trip, Bob had to be hospitalised with nosebleeds and left the boat to fly home. The hired crew would later report that Bob and Sue's relationship seemed to be breaking down.
There was practical frustrations that led to some bickering and things, but it's absolute garbage. The relationship was not on the rocks, it was very solid.
How much did Bob mean to your mum?
Well, everything. They were actually been toying with the idea of us all them sailing somewhere and getting married. So Bob was Mum's future, as well as her past.
3 months later, Australia Day 2009.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Bob and Sue spend the early part of the day on the Four Winds. Mid-afternoon, Sue heads for the marina on the yacht's only dinghy, leaving Bob to spend the night alone on board, but she gives him her mobile phone in case of an emergency. In a phone call from prison, Sue tells Sarah about that afternoon.
I still remember the last time I saw him. He was busy looking into the engine room, and I said, well, I'll see you later, call me if you want to come back. Yeah. He said, yep, and I could tell that he really was quite delighted that I was going because he wanted to be able to concentrate.
Did they have an argument out on the boat? There was a suggestion they had a bit of a fight, and that's maybe why she decided to leave him out there.
I think fight is far too strong a word. It was this kind of Sue, Sue, you're really irritating me. I'm trying to concentrate on this. Well, Bob, blah, no. I mean, this is how I imagine it played out. So I think it would be more of a snappy, bickery interaction as opposed to they didn't fight. There was never shouting. There was never violence. It never would escalate to a point of that. It would always be just these like a snappy exchange.
Bob, you ready?
However, it was that argument on the boat that investigators would later say was yet another sign of their failing relationship.
At some point in the early evening, according to the police version of events, Sue returns here to the Four Winds. She's now decided to kill the man she's been with for 18 years.
Bob's final moments, police say, play out like this. At some point in the early evening, Sue boards the Four Winds. Then, with Bob below deck, still tweaking the boat's electronics, she picks up a wrench. A single blow to the back of the head. If it doesn't kill him instantly, he's unconscious. She uses a winch to drag Bob up 2 steep flights of stairs. Before rolling him off the side of the yacht into a dinghy in the water below. Sue then takes the body in perfect darkness, weighs him down and pushes her lover into the Derwent River. Police say Sue sabotaged the Four Winds to wash away forensic evidence. She cut pipes in the toilet and the yacht started to slowly take on water.
Whoever committed this crime had done so not only with a particular level of viciousness, but also had gone out of their way to cover their tracks afterwards, and then presumably dumped the body either overboard or some distance away using the dinghy. This was no sudden outburst of violence. This was a calculated and vicious crime.
It's January 2009, and Bob Chappell has vanished from his yacht in Hobart. Police are convinced the 65-year-old has been murdered. And his body dumped overboard somewhere in the Derwent River.
We have no body, we have no weapon, we don't know what happened, we don't know time of death, we don't know the means by which the body was disposed of. Like, we still know nothing really about what happened to Bob.
But what police are certain of early on in their investigation is that Bob's partner of nearly 20 years, Susan Neill-Fraser, isn't being completely honest with them.
She was revealed to be a liar, and the biggest lie she told was to police about exactly what she did the night Bob died.
She told some lies to police about her whereabouts on the night that Bob Chappell went missing, and that really didn't go very well for her.
Crime writer Dave Killick has been covering the mystery of what happened on board the Four Winds for more than 8 years.
Police asked Susan Neill-Fraser a series of questions, and it was nothing particularly unusual at the time about her whereabouts on the night that Bob Chappell went missing. She was insistent that she left him on the boat, that she went home, she made a couple of phone calls, she didn't see anybody else that night, and she went to bed and got up the next morning.
But police tapping Sue's home phone would discover she actually did leave her house. She's caught out telling a family member that as midnight approached on the night of the killing, she suddenly became concerned for Bob, leaving home and walking to the nearby Sandy Bay foreshore to check on him.
I don't know what happened, but at some point she ended up walking. She walked back down there that night because she couldn't sleep.
Looking out towards their yacht, the Four Winds, Sue sees nothing unusual, and so she returns home.
Why walk down there and observe from such a distance and not really obtain any satisfaction that Bob's okay?
I don't know. I guess there might be something settling and just feeling like you're nearby. I don't know.
Sue also lied about where she'd spent the afternoon before Bob was murdered, claiming she was at a Bunnings warehouse, wandering the aisles for hours.
Her claim to have gone to visit a Hobart hardware store wasn't possible because that hardware store was shut at the time. Police spent ages looking at CCTV. She was asked again. She was asked repeatedly whether she'd been. She was insistent, and that was found to be just untrue, and that told very heavily against her.
The police say that she didn't go to Bunnings because they can't find her on the CCTV footage. I've seen the footage. I'm not convinced that it eliminates the possibility that she could actually have been there because the cameras don't necessarily cover the full shop or all of the exits. And also the quality of the footage is quite poor.
Doesn't she claim to have been there for many, many hours? Surely if you're wandering around for many hours, you would have been captured on some sort of a camera.
Yeah, I mean, that's a legitimate point.
Then there was a lie about a mystery red jacket found abandoned on a wall near the foreshore at Sandy Bay. Sue claimed it wasn't hers. She'd never even seen it. Tests later revealed it contained her DNA.
I mean, there's nothing I can do to undo what Mum did. And I mean, she's hugely regretful for not just being really upfront and open about it from the beginning. But I mean, that's the power of hindsight, isn't it?
And in hindsight, all of those lies, according to Sue Neill-Fraser's supporters, could be explained by her emotional state of mind and the Valium she was taking to treat her stress.
Susan Neill-Fraser's supporters say that here is a woman who has just lost her partner, or whose partner is missing, who is upset and confused, and who gave incorrect information to police, not because she was lying, but because she was in a state of emotional distress.
7 months after Bob disappeared, there was still no body and no murder weapon. But police believe the circumstantial case was strong enough to charge Sue with Bob's murder.
What are your memories of the day that the police moved in to arrest your mum?
It felt like someone had died, I guess. You know, it feels like somebody, you feel hopeless and helpless, and it felt like, you know, there's nothing I could do, and it's so final.
While it was clear Sue Neill-Fraser had lied to police, the crime scene had provided prosecutors with little in the way of hard evidence. The forensic chemical luminol revealed this pattern in the dinghy. Police claimed it was blood, but bizarrely, no samples were ever tested to confirm what it was. A small amount of Bob's blood was found on the yacht, perhaps the result of the murder, or was there an innocent explanation?
Bob had these histories of nosebleeds. He was hospitalised with nosebleeds on the way down with the boat.
Of all the forensic evidence found on the Four Winds, what could be the most crucial was discovered right here, a small dark stain on the deck containing human DNA. It would become known as Sample 20.
Sample 20 was the DNA of a homeless 15-year-old girl called Megan Vass. During the trial, Megan claimed to have never been on a yacht before in her life, and prosecutors successfully argued her DNA could have been inadvertently carried onto the yacht on the shoes of police. So the jury was told it was a red herring and that Sue Neill-Fraser was the only other person on board the yacht. Sue maintained her innocence.
There's this expectation that, you know, somebody in that situation that she's been in would break down or would not cope. And in some ways, I think that reserved resilience and strength that she has worked against her.
You mean there's people mistaking her strength for a perception that she may be unfeeling or, you know, not affected in some way by Bob's death?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. Not sort of breaking down and crying publicly is not a sign, you know, if you don't, it doesn't make you callous, it doesn't make you a bad person.
But Sue's unemotional demeanour was a factor, as the jury unanimously found her guilty of murdering Bob Chappell. She was sentenced to 23 years in prison.
I just say that we're extremely disappointed with the outcome tonight. This is not how we expected to go at all, and this is certainly not the last you'll see of us here. We're just going to keep fighting until we see Mum acquitted.
And incredibly, that fight has grown into an unprecedented movement to prove Sue's innocence and have her released from jail.
The first trial, in my view, was a catastrophe.
The campaign to free Sue has attracted a high-profile team of supporters, including Justice Advocate Dr. Bob Moles.
There is no body. There are, in fact, no injuries to a body to speculate about. There's no murder weapon. It's not too different from the sort of story about Lindy Chamberlain, who took a tiny little baby off to a tent and cut its throat and then stuffed it into a bag and all sorts of things. I mean, these are really quite bizarre hypotheses being put forward by the prosecution.
First, Sue had no history of violence towards anyone, and according to Dr. Moles, there was no evidence to support the allegation she bashed Bob to death with a wrench.
It's got all the elements of a good whodunit. Somebody being bashed and beaten with a heavy metal wrench.
Where did the idea of this wrench come from?
I think it came from the imagination of the prosecutor. It's a boat, so it must have a wrench on it. And then apparently it's a big boat, so it must have a big wrench. Fabulous story, very exciting if you're doing it as a piece of drama on television, but it has no place as part of a serious criminal process.
As for this luminol test that police say revealed blood in the dinghy,
luminol can actually respond to over 100 different substances, only one of which is blood. Bleach-based cleaning agents would do it. If somebody had been cleaning the boat out with some bleach-based cleaning agent, then it would look like a bloodbath under the luminol test.
Also in dispute, the prosecution's claims that Sue, then a 55-year-old woman with a history of back problems, had the physical strength to manoeuvre Bob's body out of the cabin onto the deck and then onto the dinghy.
I think it would be an incredibly difficult task to actually winch that body up onto the deck unaided.
I think it's ridiculous. Mum she wasn't really able to lift heavy rocks. You know, she had a bulging disc in her back. She was not physically capable of doing it.
All of this, of course, leaves one enormous question. If Sue Neill-Fraser didn't kill Bob on this boat, then who did?
Hang up now. Please continue.
Sue Neill-Fraser's phone calls from Risdon Prison to her daughter Sarah can come at any time.
Well, I think I've been putting a very good front on it for years because it's harder than I probably have articulated.
Sue was found guilty of bashing her partner Bob Chappell to death on their yacht, then dumping his body in the Derwent River.
And how does it feel to be portrayed as a violent killer?
So far from what I am and what I've always been that I just don't, I can't take it seriously, not even now. Not even now. I just simply can't take it seriously, Sarah.
Inside her prison cell, Sue has a photo of Bob next to her bed, a reminder, she says, of the life they had together.
We did everything together, absolutely everything. We travelled together, we ate dinner every night together, we went away together, everything. There was nothing hidden from each other. He knew everything in my life and I knew everything in his.
Sue has always denied killing Bob, and for 8 years, Sarah has been leading the campaign to get her out.
There's no doubt in my mind that Mum is innocent and she did not commit this crime.
Either you are a grieving daughter who is fighting to overturn one of the most incredible cases of injustice we've seen, or you're just simply too close to this to accept that your mum is actually a killer. Which is it?
She didn't do it. It doesn't add up. To do it, but then to deny doing it and to go on 8 years and to witness me struggle the way I've struggled and my sister, would Mum, who dedicated herself to us, allow us to go through that as well? And it's like, of course not.
One of the problems is, for me, that if one is innocent, as I am, you don't even feel that you need to defend yourself because you know that, in fact, it is. No, of course I had nothing to do with Bob's disappearance. To be honest with you, on the morning, and I think I've told you this before, on the morning that we discovered he was missing, I thought he'd simply come ashore to get help to fix the boat. It didn't even occur to me there was something wrong for quite a long time.
Sue and her supporters have their own theory about what happened after she left Bob alone on board their yacht on Australia Day in 2009. They believe he was the victim of a bungled robbery.
It certainly wasn't a premeditated or planned event. It was simply people being opportunistic, seeing an empty boat.
Aluminium dinghy tethered to the starboard side, right up in tight.
Right up against the hull?
Yes, yeah.
The Four Winds had a white rubber dinghy. Jill, a keen sailor, paid particular attention to the mysterious aluminium boat tied up alongside the Four Winds because she was planning to buy an outboard motor for her own dinghy.
Is there any way that what you might have been looking at from over there could have been that white inflatable?
No, I don't believe so, no.
It was just too different to what you actually saw?
Yes, yeah.
There were at least 3 other reports of a grey or silver dinghy seen alongside the Four Winds. Those campaigning for Sue's freedom, including friend and Melbourne psychologist Eve Ash, suspect the aluminium dinghy was being used by thieves to break into yachts on Australia Day.
Well, it's possible Bob didn't hear until there was somebody coming in to the boat or doing things on the deck. Hard to know. Probably the whole interaction took place in the wheelhouse down to the saloon.
The theory is that Bob surprised the intruders and was killed during the scuffle that followed.
I don't think that the killing was an intentional killing. If there was a scuffle and Bob got killed, I hope it was quick and he didn't suffer a lot.
They may not have even meant to have killed him. They maybe just meant to frighten him or, you know, I don't know what happened, but I don't think that there was this pre-planned malicious intent in any of this.
That it was just potentially a robbery gone wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I think.
This theory also ends with the boat being sabotaged by the intruders to destroy the evidence. And then Bob's body being dropped into the depths of the Derwent.
Suddenly he was not there anymore.
I know, and we've never really had a chance.
I'm just getting a bit upset because it does bring it all back.
I know.
An awful day. Oh, dear.
You're going to make me cry, Mum.
Yes, well, you can join the club. It's very hard, and I don't think any of us really were able to grieve properly.
No.
The suggestion that other people were on the Four Winds is supported by one of the few pieces of forensic evidence found on the yacht, a small, dark stain called Sample 20 that contained human DNA. Police claimed it was inadvertently carried on board on the shoes of investigators.
It was dismissed at the first trial because the prosecution successfully argued it was inconclusive. But Sample 20 is about to become the centre of Susan Neill-Fraser's new bid for freedom.
Months after Bob disappeared, Sample 20 was matched to the DNA of a 15-year-old homeless girl named Megan Vass.
DNA says somebody was there. It doesn't say they were a murderer.
It could simply mean Megan Vass was on the yacht at some other time. But during Sue's trial, Megan said she'd never been on a yacht in her entire life.
Could it have been someone else?
No. The odds of somebody else having the same profile is around at least 100 million to 1 against.
In terms of science, that sounds like almost as certain as you could get.
Yes, for all practical purposes, yeah, it's about as certain as you can get.
Professor Peter Gunn is one of Australia's leading DNA experts. He highly doubts the police claim that Megan's DNA was accidentally carried onto the yacht.
Let me push you though, you're one of the foremost DNA experts in this country. If you had to make a call whether she was on the yacht or someone walked her DNA onto the yacht, what would you say?
Based on what I've seen, I'd say it's more likely that at some stage she was on the yacht.
And new forensic tests by Victorian police found sample 20 contained a large amount of DNA, and there was no evidence it was carried onto the boat by another person.
I think the girl on the boat holds the key to this.
But the girl on the boat, or at least the girl whose DNA was found on the boat, is unable to tell us about how it could have got there. Megan Vass will be called to testify at Susan Neill-Fraser's next appeal hearing, so for legal reasons, we're unable to interview her.
I've just got off the phone with Megan Vass's mother, who has confirmed Megan has been called as a witness at the upcoming appeal. She says Megan is devastated, she's terrified, has no idea why she's been called. And the family also maintains they still have no idea how Megan's DNA got on the boat. It's a pretty tough time for the family at the moment because I also understand that Megan has recently been the subject of some death threats.
Susan Neill-Fraser is in no doubt that someone else was on board the Four Winds.
I knew I was innocent, so my thinking was, how on earth were we to get to the truth and find the real perpetrators?
Do you really get a sense that Sandy Bay, this sleepy little place, is going to be the spot that goes down as the host of one of the biggest injustices we've seen?
Yeah, it'll be an injustice. It'll be a mystery. Well, hopefully it'll be solved.
Psychologist Eve Ash is among the supporters of Susan Neill-Fraser, who is serving 23 years in jail for killing her partner, Bob Chappell, on their yacht on Australia Day in 2009. No body or murder weapon was ever found.
There's a whole bunch of people that see her as a gentle, softly, well-spoken woman, and a lot that see her as a dark, evil, manipulative killer.
Why do you think this has been able to divide this community so much? What is it about the story?
I think people want to believe that the police and the courts got it right. And so they really want to cling to that, despite what might be unravelling as a major wrongful conviction.
Hopes for Sue's acquittal rest heavily on the DNA of Megan Vass, who was a homeless 15-year-old at the time of Bob's murder.
Megan's DNA, known as Sample 20, was found on the yacht, even though she denied ever being on board. Now, we can reveal a new witness has come forward, a woman whose statement will be presented at Sue's appeal hearing. Now, that statement will detail private conversations she had with Megan about what happened on the yacht, and even sources close to the investigation admit it could be enough to win Sue a new trial. Will Sandy Bay ever give up the secret?
I think the truth will come out, and I think it is starting to unravel now.
Sue's daughter Sarah is optimistic but guarded about the new evidence they're planning to present in court.
I'm nervous to talk about the particulars. It would be inappropriate, but I think we can be pretty confident that Mum will be found innocent of the crime, and hopefully the true perpetrators who remain out in the community will be brought to justice.
Susan Neill-Fraser should not be in jail. Susan Neill-Fraser has not had a fair trial. Susan Neill-Fraser is entitled to a presumption of innocence, and therefore she should be free.
Justice campaigner Dr. Bob Moles is assisting Sue Neill-Fraser's legal team as they prepare for the appeal.
So we're to believe the police, the jury, the courts, they all just got it wrong.
Miscarriages of justice occur. Courts make mistakes. It's not an uncommon thing. But what we have to do when a mistake has occurred is to own up to it and put it right.
So far, Sue Neill-Fraser has had 2 failed attempts in court at overturning her murder conviction. The next may be her last.
How are you feeling about the appeal process? Are you feeling confident or...
Well, I really don't dare to hope. We've been knocked back so many times. I find it just really very trying that the process seems more geared to shutting down the fact that the truth needs to come out rather than helping to accelerate it.
Sue has now been behind bars for 8 years. Time spent thinking not only about the day she will be free, but also about Bob Chappell, the man she lost.
You know, I think the memories that we collected together over the years are what sustains me now, because whatever they do to me, they can't take those away. And my life as I knew it has come to an end, and I just have to try and put the pieces back together.
I think that in some ways I've lost a part of Mum forever. It's just so sad that every day that passes is a day that she's missing out on, you know, being a grandmother, you know, being a mother. And yeah, I'm really sad for that.
I imagine you allow yourself to fantasise about when the gates swing open and she's allowed to walk free.
It'd be amazing. I really look forward to the day that that happens. But I suppose in another way, I actually find it really hard to allow myself to even fantasise about that. But really, at the end of the day, you know, I think the truth's going to come out one way or another, because, you know, you can't deny the truth. It just has a way of surfacing. And when that day does come, oh my goodness, there is just going to be the biggest party ever.
So how likely is it that Sue Neill-Fraser will get another chance to clear her name? When we return, the latest developments in the case.